I have been wanting to talk about Top Gun Maverick for a long time now. Now, I really enjoy movies that make super bold color choices, but what's fascinating about Top Gun Maverick is brilliance is often found in the nuance and detail that no one else will notice. Let's see how this works. So this film opens with a montage on the deck of an aircraft carrier, and they've leaned into these really golden warm tones. It's almost sepia looking. And as I start to kind of pull out some elements from the frame, when I look at the highlights, it's hard to call it a white point, but the highlights are very, very warm. This might be about as neutral as we get in the image, maybe pulling from the shirt of this guy here. But what Top Gun Maverick does so well with this is it doesn't end up feeling desaturated and sepia like so many films do. We find the answer in how they let highly saturated colors pop through. Look at this. While this whole image might feel a little on the warm side, this pop of red allows something to stand out. And we see this throughout the scene, where if we look at the white points of the image, right, even some of the blue of the sky really is still quite warm, but they don't let the whole image fall into desaturated sepia tones. They actually allow some really heavily saturated color pops to come through. I think of the green on the jacket here, so that we get some of the reds of the helmet, and even the yellow in the uniforms on the background. When I look through some of these colors, I think that they are some very bold accents popping through the warm sepia of the background. And they keep these warm tones right through training. We have some nice rich skin tones. As I try to select a white point, once again, that's a really warm white point. We're getting some nice greens of the suit coming through, kind of that, I tend to think of it like a ranger green. And we still get some elements of high saturated colors providing a little bit of a pop to the image. We quite literally spend the first half of this film in this warm shadow, kind of golden toned look. So what do they do when reality hits? Well, this is the scene where they're launching to complete their actual mission. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. What do? We're sitting in that warm tone right now. They're finishing their prep for launch. They check in with the command, which is in blue, and then look, they cut back, and immediately it is a whole new look as soon as the plane launches. You feel that chill of the cool tones. As I look at this image, some of the highlights, and let me pull this here, I realize that might not be pure white there, but some of the highlights still maintain a little bit of their warmth. But what is true about those midtones and shadows? Immediately, those midtones and shadows start cooling off. And look at this compared to this shot, just a few edits apart. But to push this even further, look at the color of the map once they're on their mission. It's this really intense blue color. What color was that map back during training? Gray or even a little bit warm tone, depending on where you look at it in the image. I am a huge fan of using aspect ratios well to tell stories. And it's not for every story. If you want to know how to do it poorly, watch my review on Tenet. But Top Gun is a film that gets this right. We open the film in this nice full frame aspect ratio, and I think this is great because so often we're used to seeing letterboxing in films, and that nice big frame gives us a bit of a nostalgia feel. What's funny is the original Top Gun movie was released in an anamorphic aspect ratio, so it's not necessarily pointing us back to the original movie. We get our letterboxing kicked in as soon as we feel real life on the ground. Do you notice how the top and bottom have been trimmed in? We're no longer thinking about flying, we're grounded into reality. So how do we get back? How do we disguise that change from a letterboxed picture into the full frame perspective? Well, the first thing you're gonna look for is high action. So watch this. We get the plane flying right horizontally through the frame, and because you have this really high action happening at that point in time, your eyes are taken away from the change in letterboxing. Now, just because you're flying doesn't mean that they give you that full aspect ratio. Watch this. In this part of the film, Tom Cruise is flying, but he's flying casually. He's not really gunning that throttle. But what happens? How do we transition from letterbox to that more wide framing? We go from casual flying, shove the throttle forward, and all of a sudden we have that nice tall view. And it totally works. This works because they are motivating it with both action and intention and the emotion of the story. Just to show you how obvious that is, let's go to the end of the film. As soon as Tom Cruise lands and the motion of the jet stops, we're immediately back into letterboxing. In my opinion, Top Gun is a perfect example of excellence in the subtleties. Sure, they didn't reinvent the idea of color in filmmaking, but I feel like so often doing subtle things well is even more difficult than making extreme choices. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Top Gun Maverick, go ahead and hit that like button to feed the algorithm so that more people can see it, and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content like this. I would also love to hear your thoughts. What did you enjoy from Top Gun Maverick? Make sure to leave it down in the comments. All right, I'll see you in the next one.